All right. Now we have that awkward weirdness of when it actually goes live on YouTube, and it looks like we have hit that mark. So, welcome everybody to the Making Awesome podcast, Season 2, Episode 43. We are hanging out with the team from 3DQ. We got Steven, Mateo, and Steph. They're all here hanging out on a Sunday post-wedding, I'm told. None of them got married, but a friend of theirs got married. So, thank you guys for hanging out a little early for you all on a Sunday. But I don't want to do too much of introductions for you because I know you guys have crazy stories and I want you guys to tell them. So give us the Backstreet Boys, the who you are, the where you from, the what you did, and as long as you love me. Steven, if you don't mind, take us away.
Sure. So I've been 3D printing for a long time. Been 3D printing since I was in high school, and that's like 8 years ago now. And it's been 3D printing all through university, and joined 3DQ near the end of my mechatronics degree. And I've been working with them for the past 2 years now. And so I'm the product lead at 3DQ, and we're coming up with new products, new ways to automate 3D printers, and new ways to, I guess, automate the supervision of 3D printers as well. So it's really exciting.
Mateo?
Yeah, I'm Mateo. I'm Chief of Innovation at 3DQ. I started actually, as I think most of us working here did, most 3D printer engineers did, as a hobbyist. Also back in high school, I got really into it during kind of the earlier RepRap days, back when almost the entire community was on the RepRap forums and the IRC on Freenode, which is kind of fun.
Learned
so much. Yeah,
buddy.
It was crazy. Learned so much. Like, it's interesting to see where all those people went to. And yeah, I ran throughout high school, kind of did 3D printing as a hobby. A lot of people found out I did 3D printing, so I started doing commissions and stuff like that. And what ended up happening, I quickly realized, like, 3D printing is an amazing production method, but it's really inefficient. And as soon as you start to hit, volumes of dozens of parts or a few hundred parts. So that's when I really started thinking about and working on how do we make it more efficient? How do we get rid of downtime in 3D printing? And actually looking at it, from the lens of not just a prototyping tool, but a manufacturing tool. And yeah, started thinking about automation years ago. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago that we started 3DQ, specifically a company around designing 3D printer automation, with the goal of having a system that's kind of printer agnostic, leave the hardware design, the printer design to the experts, and just really focus in on the automation itself.
Okay. And then Steph?
Yeah, so I have been in business for a long time. My background is finance strategy. I've worked with a lot of small businesses around the world and a lot of manufacturers, and I really believe it's time for a change in manufacturing. I think the traditional ways are unsustainable. I think there's too much shipping. I think there's too much waste. I think it takes jobs out of communities. So when Mateo first showed me, he went to school with my daughter. So when he first showed me his tech, I went, oh, this has the potential to, people on a small scale, they can bring printing in-house, they can make extra side income, they can, make whatever they want. And on a larger scale, you can distribute printers closer to end users and get rid of all that shipping. And so that's where we started working on the automation and developed Quinly, which is the program that you can put on your own printer to automate the whole process.
Right. So there's a little bit here beyond just automated 3D printing. And the thing that's kind of taken off on the internet most recently is QuinlyVision. So before we go too deep into QuinlyVision, can we kind of talk about 3DQ's product offerings as it currently stands?
Yes, as it currently stands, we have, so to automate specific printers, because we use Gravity as part of our part release process.
Relatively reliable. Yeah, Gravity's pretty reliable.
Most of the time.
And cost effective, you know.
Yeah.
It's true. Cost effective. Yes, it is.
You know, a little bit cheaper than robotics, just saying. So we, so we said, you know, Mateo had actually formulated a print bed for automation 7 years ago. He's been revising that formulation to the point where now it's like really dialed in, can deal with a ton of different materials. But if our printers, as they are today, you know, whether it's a Prusa or an Ultimaker or a Ender or whatever, they are not designed for automation.
No,
and so you can't just put on a print bed and software. You have to tilt the printer. You have to put part guides on because the parts get caught under the bed or they go the wrong place. Or with the Ultimaker, you've got to open the doors. And so there's a whole bunch of hardware configuration we've had to do in order to automate printers, which meant that it's relatively slow to get automation out because we can only do one printer model at a time.
Right.
But in the process, of course, we learned a whole bunch of features that people want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what actually led us to QuinlyVision, because once you're automated and it's running without you, then it's like, well, who's watching my printers?
So I first found out about you guys from a Reddit post when I saw QuinlyVision working with a GIF or a short video. And I commented and said, I want to learn more about this and I want to interview you guys. And that was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And I've been more or less stalking your Discord. I mean, I'm in there. We know that I'm in there, but I've been seeing what's been changing. And I show up to the live streams. I continue to bother you until you make a Patreon, which I will do multiple times during this episode. I'm not sorry about this. But, and then you created a Discord bot that actually has, it's as we talked about, a slightly lesser version, right? It's not a fully featured version, but damn it, it was a lot of fun to mess around with it in your Discord. So I guess first thing, if the viewers, listeners, whatever out there in radio land, if you guys aren't a part of the 3DQ Discord, go get in there, join the Try QuinlyVision, and then just try it out. They do random streams throughout the week, and every now and then it includes the ability to upload your models live and the system to look at them live. And I gave it some really hard ones. I gave it one where there was very slight stringing. It picked up a warp that was not there. It picked up a cable chain that was called a warp, but it picked up every bit of the stringing. People have sent it. I saw spaghetti, like actual plates, spaghetti and meatballs. I saw bananas. And both of those times it didn't give anything. So it's intelligent.
It's
as far as intelligent goes. I'm a layman when it comes to to that whole side of things. And then I noticed you all also do this 3D printing automation, and someone that has a small print farm, my print farm is nowhere near the size of somebody like Pooch from Repcord, and seeing what that could do from a benefit standpoint, right? A lot of us that run print farms, we look at dialing in our print times so they're less than 18 hours or less than 24 hours, because I'm in the office roughly 16 to 18 hours a day. Well, I don't have to want to start a print and then it finish right when I leave the office. No, I want to finish right before I leave so I can start the next one. But if you're running a fully automated system, you don't have to do any of that crap. And I'm like, oh, damn, this is really cool. And then I looked at the price, said, oh, this is actually reasonable, right? It's not cheap. It's reasonable. When you look at what the availability of it does, especially, definitely don't have a 1.8 millimeter CHT nozzle in my hand for no damn reason. Boy,
I love that.
I wonder what he's going to do with that, and maybe he has a Quinly automation system. I wonder what's going to happen with that. But can you guys talk a little bit about where this started and where it is, right? Because a lot of people just see where you are now. But I firmly believe a business is way more than where you are now. It's how you got there.
And I'll tell you just a little bit to start, and then move over to Matt. But it's because Matt and my daughter went to school together. As soon as he got a 3D printer, of course, I heard about it because all the kids went home and like, Mateo's got this 3D printer. You should see what he made.
Oh,
And
he had you were the guy with the 3D printer. Like when the person in the family is the tech person and they accidentally make the mistake of telling the family they're the tech person.
Yeah, I've made the mistake of bringing stuff to school and showing people.
That could be a problem, yes.
Yeah.
And then I mentored a lot of entrepreneurs, and it was just, I just think it's a fun thing to do. And one of my mentees was pulling her hair out because she needed a little device for her business, and to injection mold it was going to cost her, tons of money. And she needed like 50 parts or something. Well, Mateo can tell you more about that. And I said, well, my daughter has this friend who can 3D print. Maybe he can 3D print it. So in terms of beginnings, Mateo obviously was doing this as a hobby, but pretty soon it became pretty high volume. So Matt, maybe you can tell people about that period.
Yeah, actually that customer that Steph referred to me was one of the projects that made me realize, because they were using 3D printing as a direct substitute for injection molding. So I had to do a lot of costing and figure out, I'm doing a run of 50 parts. It's no longer a prototype, so you can't really charge what a prototype would cost. But I realized like a lot of my cost was coming out of the labor component for that project. Like it worked out, I think probably around half to 60% of the cost was just my time, which
labor is the largest cost in most businesses.
And I did not value it that much either. So that's because she obviously had a price target that we were trying to hit. And I was kind of racking my brain, how can we bring that cost down? And when I saw that labor was the biggest component of my 3D print cost, that's when I knew, okay, let's dig into that a bit more.
There's got to be a way.
Discovered like just how severe the problem was, because labor wasn't only a cost constraint, but it was, in order to meet her deadlines, for example, or to give her time estimates, I realized just how much inefficiency was caused by me having to constantly manage the printer and start new jobs.
Are we waking up at 3 a.m. to start a job? Yes, we are. Yes, that's correct. Yes, we are.
Every day for 2 weeks. It's so bad. It was terrible. And then the trade-off being, okay, well, maybe I can design batches that work better, but then it's going to take me time, which obviously costs money to design those batches. And so there was this whole complicated trade-off, which made me just think, okay, what if we can get rid of the labor completely? And then that's when I started looking at different types. So I realized, okay, I need something to clear the bed, started looking at different types of beds that were out there.
Right.
And eventually that spawned into me working on a formulation that was specifically good at the self-cleaning part release. Because if I wanted to create an automation system, it would have to work for every single part that I put on it. I couldn't just have it sometimes work, or work with certain size parts that wouldn't work for the type of jobs I had. So that was like the number one goal, was come up with a way that I don't have to ever worry about this automation cycling, and get rid of all the labor that I can. So that was like the very, very beginning. And I talked to Steph about this actually much later on. I think it was probably 2 years after I had done that client project. And I had a lot of time to develop this. automation and develop the print surface and all of that stuff.
Yep.
And that's like when I, because I didn't actually know Steph. I wasn't during that project. I wasn't interacting with her directly. It was just with her client.
Right.
And it wasn't until much later we actually met up for like a business mentorship meeting.
And that's when it all kind of clicked together, right?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
when I was like, it was actually about something completely different. And I told her like, oh, well, there's this other cool thing that I've been working on that could really change how we do manufacturing.
And like to give you an idea, right? It's often that we get people asking for large production runs. For those that don't know, the cost of running an injection molding machine is astronomical. Your upfront investment, if it is sub $10,000, you're getting raked over the coals for your per part cost. Normally, domestic, United States domestic, of course, you guys are up in the Great White North up there in Canada. But in the US, your average mold cost is going to run somewhere between $20,000 and $60,000 US. And that is even before a part gets made, you're outlaying that much capital. When you look at the value of 3D printing, let's say you need, I'm going to use an exact thing. I'm not going to tell the product. Please don't tell the product. But I have a client that reached out and said, we need 3,000 of something in 45 days. And I looked at them and said, good luck. Because there is no basic way that even, we have almost 40 printers, but only 13 of them are farm printers, right? There is almost no way, unless, even if we were fully automated, these parts would be 18 hours each. There's just no way it's possible. And I get a rough quote on the injection mold. It comes back to $250,000. And I told him, I said, your expectations and what is possible are not aligning. So in fact, I'm have a meeting on Tuesday talking with a company that does multi-jet fusion, the HP process, because that is much, much, much faster. However, I lose a ton of margin on that, right? I'm going to end up making pennies on a job where I should be making tens of thousands. But if it means the client gets what they want, you solve the problem and they remember you when they have a more realistic deadline. The problem with 3D printing is speed. And if we can find a way to remove those speed problems, and there are printers that are working on that, right? Everyone's seen the Bamboo X1 Carbon. Everyone knows that printer and how stupid fast it is. It's a Voron with fancy panels and probably not a LiDAR scanner. Those kind of things with your technology would allow for mass manufacturing on a 3D printing level for considerably less. Because part cost is pretty cheap, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about having a fast printer is it's only good if you're going to use it for production, you have to clear the bed, like instead of once every 5 or 6 hours, it's once every 2 hours or 1 hour.
Yep. That's a full-time job for someone to monitor a fast printer, maintain it, deal with print failures. It's why I see the value in the fast printers, but I don't know if I yet see it because reliability has not been tested. And fast printers are also loud. And for those that you might be able to pick it up in the stream, I don't know. I know everyone here on the call can hear it. My TAS 6 has been running for how long now? 2 days, 4 hours, and 23 minutes. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it is the loudest damn printer that we have in this shop. It's because the part I don't trust to the other big printer that we have, the Fusion 3, that's made for, honestly, big, ugly parts, not really fine detail. And my biggest printer is down. It's been down for over 2 years when I started to make an adjustment to it by bringing in a new Z-axis right when I hurt my back. The Z-axis weighs 45 pounds.
That's crazy.
It's a 1605 ball screwed, a pair of 12 millimeter solid steel rails for it. So it's a little,
I can't imagine what that sounds like.
Yeah, a little heavy there. And having the ability to do full on production with normal printers, right? Prusas, Enders, Ultimakers, things that a lot of us already have in our homes is so incredibly valuable. And your start was this, but eventually you also looked at kind of creating a product that something already existed, right? No one's going to deny that there was already a solution out there, but your solution is, in my opinion, way better. I think you guys do a better job at failure detection than any other software that I've seen out there. So how did that come about?
Sure. Well, one of the things I think a lot of people get trapped into, because we're so used to printing on manual systems, is like the whole idea of printing at scale manually is the idea that you have to come up with 1,000 workarounds to even make it efficient or to even make it cost effective at all. So you'll see, and this is a bad habit of mine too. I will spend hours and hours and hours trying to, make my printer just a bit faster, or slice my stuff to be, to print quicker, or to use a little bit less material. And I'm just trying to shave off like 5% here, 10% there, wherever I can, just to make it feasible to work at scale.
Right.
And what you see with these printers that are like 5 times faster, what a lot of people don't realize is, with manual, your labor increases linearly with the amount of printing you're doing. So if you're printing 5 times faster, it means you have to do monitoring monitoring on 5 times as many parts. You need to be removing 5 times as many parts per week. Your cycles are all going to be shorter. So it means you might even have, as a result of printing faster, you might actually have more downtime. So what we realized was, okay, we're seeing, printer manufacturers are
so let me explain what happened to everyone, and then we'll get back to it, because we probably just lost a bunch of viewers. All right, let's make sure everything is going. Yeah, so the printers and everything are on battery backups, but guess what isn't on battery backup?
Stream and internet.
My router is not on battery backup. And I'm a ding dong, and I forgot to I have a portable battery pack that I use for 3D scanning, and I normally put it on the internet before I start a live stream. Guess what I forgot to do today? The power blipped 3 times. My computer won't shut off. The printers won't shut off. The battery backup on the printers, this bank will last well over a day on batteries. But I don't have a UPS on my internet because it never dies during streams. But
note to self.
It's kind of like note to the business of like, hey, make a little more money. And oh well, this is the definition of shit happens. It is what it is. I do see that we're back streaming though, so thanks everyone for hanging out. I know that can be a pain. I'm sorry. I don't know where the stream cut off. What were we talking about before everything just died?
Well, so in the chat, there's someone, Ostrike says, so what we realized was we're seeing printer manufacturers are blank, and then I think we cut off.
Okay.
Okay. See, I have to even reload my own chat.
Gotta rewind.
Because Duff says I'm working on my car. I'm like, why is Grant repeating himself? He's not mad. He's definitely... Okay, so what we realized is seeing printer manufacture...
Who said that?
Was that you or Steph?
I don't know who said it. We were moving in the direction of dealing with labor versus print speed versus maintenance versus reliability, right? And that's really the big sphere here. That's the struggle of how does all of this come together to function in a reliable way?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think it was I who was saying that. We were talking about how
the labor increases linearly, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With faster printers, if you're printing 5 times faster, you're getting 5 times more parts, which means you have to print with the deal with the printer 5 times as frequently. And then there's also that counterintuitive thing where if your prints are finishing faster, when you're not there, your printer might have more downtime than you started with, which is kind of an interesting problem. So I was saying that automation and speed working together is really, really good, because automation gets rid of that scaling labor component, and it takes advantage of the speed to run more parts while you aren't there. And so that just kind of multiplies together. And you actually also asked how that works into the machine vision, the QuinlyVision stuff,
Right.
which was, so, now you have, as faster and faster machines come out, or as you have more free time to optimize your G code, you also start having a larger proportion of parts being printed while you are away. And something that, we see with people using automation is that they are not, at least in the beginning, before they start to trust the system, they might not be super comfortable with allowing so many prints to start on their own overnight when they're not watching.
It can be tough, right? Everyone wants to make sure that first layer is damn near perfect, because if it's not,
right,
we got to stop the print. And like, I swear, where is it? Is it? No, it's right here. This was a print fail that I had the other day. It was the bar guest bust from Photos Mint. I came out to check it. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd randomly woken up. I'm like, oh, I'll just go check the prints. It had just gotten to the failure, and I didn't realize it because I didn't go down to the level of the printer to notice that it had failed. It just got jammed for some reason.
Yeah.
I do know it's because of the time-lapse setup that we have, but apparently that's going to be solved soon anyways. I'm hinting at a very obscure upcoming video.
Okay.
Then, right, if you're not with it, you're checking it at 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe you go to click print and you're like, ugh, it's a Prusa, it'll be fine. And that's the one time it fails. Printers never fail on me unless I need them to run. And I know that I'm absolutely a majority in this, that whenever you've got an oh crap, I need it yesterday project, that's when the printers fail. That's when you have machine failures, because you are trying to eke out that extra 5%, that extra 10% of time. And pairing an AI vision system that I am hoping we can get it to run on a Wisecam one day. Like, that's my hope. But it's really because Wisecam mounts and all my shelves are metal, so I can just stick a Wisecam and look at every printer. And I can just like somehow have QuinlyVision integrate into my Wise app or something. That for me would be amazing, because right now we have a Wise smoke detector above every set of printers on the shelf. So if it detects smoke, it kills all the power for that shelf. And I don't care. I don't care if maybe it's steam that it's detected. Do not care. Would much rather lose 4 printers than lose my entire office, right? Or my house or my business, whatever. So that AI smart detection is really, really important because it can be integrated into whatever you want. To me, it seems natural, right? To go from, okay, I have this thing that can run on its own all the time, but if I'm going to leave it running on its own all the time, we've got a particular problem of you should never leave printers unattended. We all do it, but we shouldn't. So how do we put a nanny to watch the printers and not have to pay the nanny, or not have to pay the nanny a ton? It's AI machine vision.
Yeah, like all manufacturing processes in some respect have like a sensor to tell you if things are going well.
Yep.
And right, like your food packages go through like metal detectors to make sure there's no metal in your food, and they get weighed before they get shipped, and all these things to make sure that what's in there is actually what's in there.
I mean, they're not making sure there's no metal. They're making sure there's not an above an acceptable level of metal.
No detectable metal.
This is
Oh, the FDA. I have so many things to say about them. But yes, there's always something that checks it. And for lines where appearance is a big deal, I've seen this always on How It's Made, and it always blows my mind. They have these high-speed cameras and then jet blasters of air, and they basically launch the stuff across a chasm, and then these air jets will just selectively shoot things off of the belt or off of the system, so that anything that doesn't pass the high-speed inspection and detection is instantly taken out, and everything that passes it has a incredibly high range of success. Obviously, we're not there yet. Although that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
Next
yes,
year.
having something that can notify you is just, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
And
Sorry,
Oh,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna
Steph.
say, no, I was gonna say, Matt, we're actually not that far off, because with the automated part removal, if you combine that with your vision, if a part fails, you can auto remove it, take it out of the queue, and then start the next print, or you can remove it. Like, let's say it's a layer shift, so you don't know what's caused it.
Right.
Maybe you say, whenever I have a layer shift, remove the part, start it again. If it fails a second time, remove it from the queue. But if it doesn't fail a second time, keep going, right? And
Yeah.
that's where you start getting efficiency that's more like manufacturing, but also super useful for hobbyists, enthusiasts, people trying to gain skills in 3D printing, because it allows them to learn more faster. But the more you fail with 3D printing, the more of an expert you become. One of the things I've noticed with the 3D printing experts is it is literally how many fails they see that makes them better at 3D printing. I mean,
Oh yeah. It's actually the main reason I started Print Fix Friday was because I need to keep myself sharp, and I need to also get things wrong. And I need to rely on the fact that Cunningham's law is a thing, and the comment section will correct me every single time. And it has so far worked wonderfully. I am getting better at just like, oh, that's clearly this. I'm still learning on resin. That's still like FDM, kind of been through a lot of that. I'm still learning on resin. That's why a lot of the episodes are resin heavy, because I'm still trying to learn on it. But yes, right? If you're not continuing to learn how things fail, you can't predict the maintenance you need to do to protect it. Now, the automated system, what are some fails that it can't deal with?
like it can't automatically resolve.
Right.
I think, well, most of our focus is going to be about pointing people in the right direction, because a lot of fails actually, at least that we see, because we see it so many prints in our Discord, it's insane. A lot of them are slicing caused, and automating slicing is like one of the hardest things you can do, and it's something that we want to inch towards as much as we can. For example, if you detect under extrusion, there are a couple things you can automatically try on the next part to fix the under extrusion, but it could be a hardware issue with the printer as well. So things like hardware issues, you can't really fix automatically. Some of the more interesting things that we've been experimenting with is detecting nozzle blobs very, very early and trying to recover from those automatically. We're looking at doing some kind of system where if you detect a certain fail, you could have it make adjustments to the next print for you. But then there will always be things like, if your BL Touch pin is bent and you're just getting inconsistent readings when you're auto leveling, you can't really fix that. Yeah.
I was thinking like Blob of Doom. There's really no way to recover that. But if the machine can detect it, it can say, I'm taking myself offline.
There's the Blob of Doom, you can recover from it because
you can torch the hot end and let it fall off.
Yeah, and you don't let it get to like Doom level bad. You catch it because you have something watching 24/7. You catch it when it's still small, and that's actually one of the things that one of the detections that we worked on first was, because nozzle blobs they happen fairly often. Yeah, and they're expensive. They can cost over $100 to fix sometimes if you count your time and the time.
No, they're easily over $100 if
Yeah,
we're
it's
counting my
like
time.
insane.
And that's why
Um,
businesses just swap out hot ends.
yeah,
Like
they just have
I,
extra hot ends.
I don't even bother anymore. I don't
Yeah,
fix blobs of doom. I take the hot end off, I put a new one in, and I click print, and I put it in the bucket to deal with it later. Similar to
and there's no
FEP on resin
guarantee.
printers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like there's no guarantee that that sheet or that hot end is going to work the same after it experiences something like that. So that's why we were like, okay, well, like a lot of the way we're building the detection system is to catch problems really, really early so that it never gets to that point. And that's something I think that sets how we're working on this, because there are a lot of people working on this problem, but something that we're really focusing on is the extremely early detection. Like one thing that we're saying, our goal is to have 5-second detection for these fails. And if you catch a nozzle blob 5 seconds in, it hasn't even made it past the nozzle. And Stephen's done some experiments where you could actually, like if it's tiny nozzle blob, you could automatically eject that and start the next print or start this print over again. So it wouldn't even become a blob of doom. It's more like, we call it nozzle blob, but it's really more like a combination of
It's a nozzle
nozzle
sit.
buildup. Yeah,
It's a
it's
nozzle
tiny.
sit.
Yeah.
You said something that piqued my interest. The ability to detect and adjust. If you
Mhm.
can, so Mark Forge is known for this. They have their blacksmith algorithm and program in their X7 and
Mhm.
above. So it's mostly for the Metal X, but it does go into the X7. The Metal X is their FDM metal printer. Okay. That thing is able to basically scan. It's using a pair of cameras to triangulate, right? Scan as it's printing and adjust print parameters on the fly to deal with material deviations, atmospheric temperatures, pressures, and all that kind of crap. Because printing in Denver versus printing in Florida, two
Yeah.
very different things. Atmospheric, especially when you're dealing with filled filaments, crazy difference when you deal with that. Even if you're dealing with moisture absorption over time, right?
Mhm.
My idiot brain, after the 6-hour stream yesterday, forgot to reset the filament dryer for the nylon. So the nylon filament dryer turned off overnight. That nylon is wet. Garrett, I haven't even checked it. I know
Yeah.
it's wet. That kind of stuff would be amazing to see. I don't know if it's patented. Make sure to check that. But that would be amazing to bring that kind of tech into the consumer market. Because I do believe,
Mhm.
like you said, the slicer, automating slicer would be amazing. That's why I always push people to Prusa Slicer. My goal with Prusa Slicer is you come in, you use it on the base beginner settings, and then you jump to expert. Intermediate's kind of weird. It's missing a few things that are important. But once you've done your first dozen prints, then you can go to the expert mode and be able to learn a little bit more about the tech and how it works. Having it be fully automated for somebody from the beginning would be amazing. And I've seen this before. I've seen slicers that just say, oh, give us your file, we'll give you G-code. But generally, those slicers give you bad G-code.
Yeah.
So there's a lot where this system works together that I don't think I noticed before. So can we back up just a little bit and talk about what Quinly is for and who it is for, right? Because it's not for your average everyday person, right?
Sure. Sure it is. I mean, really, we have developed it for people who want to get more out of their 3D printers.
Okay.
And we're not charging, $10,000 a system or something. Really, it's about, if you think about the fact that you're running your printer for, how many hours a day, a lot of people want to run more prints. That's why they want to do faster prints.
Yes.
Some of it's just impatience. I just want to see my print faster.
True.
but for a lot of people, like I saw 3D printing the other day, posted this awesome her art's amazing.
Everything she does is awesome.
It's all awesome. And she was doing it on the Bamboo Lab, and she's like, oh, this was 30 minutes instead of the usual hour and a half. And I thought, okay, but what's the switching cost for you in your life of running to the printer every 30 minutes? Now, are you going to get anything done in a day?
Right.
I mean, right. And so it's not, is this ultimately, for industrializing 3D printing? Absolutely. But it also, for any type of super user, it also creates huge value for you, because your printer becomes a tool, not something you have to babysit and run your schedule around, and kind of, as Mateo was saying, not something where you're reslicing or planning. And, Stephen's run into this as well, that he does printing obviously at work, but he also does a lot of stuff at home. And I know he finds the automation has made a lot of difference doing his non-planar designs and that type of thing.
That would be cool. So Quinly obviously saves, and it's Quinly and QuinlyVision, right? So QuinlyVision is the AI, Quinly is the automated print system, correct? That way I get the naming scheme right?
Exactly.
And they're also, they'll be available separately, because some people might find value from just the vision stuff. Like, for example, I think Markforged, the way that they've implemented machine learning and like live calibration is sort of it's a really, really good example
it's just
that they've
expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
You're spending 80 grand just to try it out.
And it's limited to that printer. So what we want to do is make something, as similar as possible available to printers that you already have. And it's kind of interesting to see how quickly people buy new printers as they come out and then stop using their old ones. I think that's pretty wasteful, because
I don't have that problem.
I
have
understand
a problem with buying
why
printers as soon as they come out.
yeah,
I don't have a problem with
exactly.
not using them.
Well, if you're using them, that's good. But I think like you shouldn't have to buy a whole new printer to get the next generation of features. And so that's what we want. We want to bring these types of things to printers that are already out there, because if you just need some kind of live compensation, switching your entire farm over to Markforged printers is probably not going to be feasible. But if you can get something pretty good, and actually Arts does different stuff, then that can like bring your print farm years forward in terms of features without you having to buy a whole new set of machines.
These features are software, they're not hardware. Like the hardware is a webcam and like a microcontroller, a little Raspberry Pi or something like that.
And that's the amazing part. Now, of course, the cost of Raspberry Pis is kind of ridiculous, but you guys are also using, I forget what it's called, but you're using something else, right?
Yeah. Well, we used to sell Raspberry Pis in our store, and then we couldn't buy them in bulk anymore. So we sourced this other board called the Rock 64. But with all of our software, we're just trying to.
All right, God, every friggin' time. Is it recording though? Is it? No, it's not. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Let me start the recording again. Son of a diddly. It has never been this bad. I am so sorry, everybody. I am so sorry. I feel like such an asshole. The weather's, it's Florida, so it's the Sunshine State, which means it's thundering and lightning in the middle of the day.
Right.
So now the battery is connected. It's fine. Nothing's gonna die again.
Hook the router up to your Tesla. You're good.
I do have a Tesla coil, actually. See, I am a geek. It's just no one really knows about it. No one really knows how big of a geek I actually am.
Well, it's good when you said Tesla. Your first thought was Tesla coil, not the car.
Oh, I don't know. See, it's funny to me that you think I have that kind of money. There is no YouTube money here, okay? No, I have a car that's older than I think 2 of the 3 people on the stream. No offense to you. My car is 20 years old.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry,
Close.
guys. Yeah. Again, the power went out, so I have now put on the battery backup. Since I said, all right, screw it, I lost the stream again. I'm gonna go quickly run and put the battery backup on. So
we were
thank you all for dealing
guessing
with me.
while you were gone. We're like, what are the odds he's running to the battery?
Running the battery.
Yeah.
The odds were very high. It was
Yeah.
1. Yes,
I
it
should
was
have bet.
perfect. 3D by JB says, I still think of the band when I hear Tesla. What band?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad loves that band.
Wait, is there a band called Tesla that I'm not aware of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like a rock band.
Oh, damn it. This is bad. This doesn't go good. Okay, well, that's good to know. Well, thank you for putting up with this. I have now derailed the conversation twice. I'm going to blame it on Mother Nature, but it's technically my fault, so I'm sorry. Oh, apparently it's a hairband. I got the hair for a hairband now. Amber, figure that out for me, please. She's in the chat. I did not know there was a band. I like Motown. I like Motown. Anyways, where were we? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ostrike. Talking about the price of Raspberry Pis, that you guys went over to the Rock 64, that it does work with all of your software as well. So, yeah, because Pis have gotten a little complicated to get. I just bought a few more in from Reddit. I bought Pi 3Bs at retail from Reddit. I bought 6 of them. I said, oh my God, I'm winning, apparently, I guess. So that's a plus.
I don't know that anyone's winning if like outdated pies are going for retail these days. That's
No,
crazy.
yeah. Well, eBay was selling Pi 3Bs for $100. So
True.
I'm going to call what I got winning, I guess.
Yeah.
Jimmy was saying that he still uses his old ANET A8. It has been fixed. I've already confirmed this with Jimmy. That it's not a fire hazard as his daily driver. Even though it's not really in anymore. So he's obviously upgraded the crap out of it. Does your system support machines that get upgrades? Is that a thing?
Yeah, so the Ender 3 is probably the best example of a machine that everyone upgrades. Sometimes people even upgrade their Ender 3 before they even start printing on the Ender 3, which is a bad idea, but
That's crazy.
I don't know, man.
Everyone
There are
does it
some
anyway.
upgrades that Enders just need. Like taking that glass bed and throwing it outside and putting a magnetic flex plate on it. Because honestly, the bed is made of silicon carbide. Like, the carborundum crap is silicon carbide. You don't want your nozzle hitting silicon carbide. It's sandpaper.
Yeah.
And if they are going to put a Quinly on it, it does come with a bed, right?
yes. Yeah, so the vapor bed goes right onto the aluminum and it stays there, so it's super rigidly attached to the print bed, heats up really quickly. But
it's like permanently attached.
on the Ender 3, yeah, for the Prusa, we just attach it to the flex plate. So
to a flex plate.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like
But
a
on the
sticker
Ender,
then?
there's
3M.
3M. What is it? The
Well, that works out. 'Cause I've got
856 something.
Is this it? I do, yeah. I've got one of these generic Prusa beds that's only got PEI on one side. The other side is just straight steel.
That's
so
perfect.
Perfect.
This is perfect. It's a Fies Tech bed. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do with this.
There you go.
Aha! I was
That's actually
prepared, but I
perfect.
didn't even know it. Perfect.
Yeah, but I guess going back, the mods people do to their Enders, almost all mods are still compatible with automation.
Mhm.
Like all the direct drives, all the extruders work, dual Z-axis, Ender extender. As long as you get, like, if you extend it in the X and Y, then your bed changes shape and you're going to need a different bed. But in the Z direction, you just need to change firmware, and we'll still be offering, like in the near future, we'll be offering beds for printers, separate from the Quinly software. So you'll still need to be using the software to get the bed, but if your bed is a weird size that's not typical, or like not one that we currently support, we'll be making vapors more widely available for other printers because we're trying to support more printers with our new
So
Quinly.
Like,
we did
just
have
gonna
a
say-
question about the bed.
Okay.
Mhm.
What is it made out of, or are you not able to tell me?
I
made out
spent
of-
7 years working on this.
That is proprietary, and you're not getting it. Got it.
I don't
But-
even know.
Right. But that being said, so something we were going to go into, you know, and this mod question is a good segue into that, is that this summer, or really like in the next couple of weeks, we've been we're working on making everything more modular. So if people want to design their own hardware to automate their printers that we might not support directly, they can do that, and then they can get the software to run it 24/7. Or, you know, as Stephen was saying, like if you had an ender with an extended y-axis, for example, you know, you might be able to find a different size bed that we have and put it on there, and then combine that with the software to get automation on that. So even if we don't explicitly have a hardware kit, we'll be offering things in pieces, like software separate, or pieces of the hardware separate, so that you can put together your own automation. You don't have to wait for it to become available. And I think that makes sense, just even as a company for us, because you know, it leverages the open source
Right.
maker community, because, you know, everyone with a 3D printer, or most people with a 3D printer, are also really, really good at hardware design. So, you know, why not just have hardware designs available out there, and then we can focus on what we're good at, which is automation software design, so that you can just slap that onto your hardware and get it working.
And that also means when there's new printers out, we
Yeah.
don't have to, you know, do a whole hardware redesign. We're hoping the OEMs catch on to the fact that automation is going to make 3D printing, you know, 5 times more useful as opposed to 5 times faster. No, sorry. But
I agree with you, right? The big OEMs have figured it out, and that's not, you know, the Crealities, it's the GEs, the HP, Mimaki, Stratasys, 3D Systems. They've figured this out. They offer full automation systems. But the smaller companies, Creality's not a small company. I don't know if they care. And I think this is a great way for them to start to see the value that a product like this can bring to the market.
But I would argue that the automation, if you use gravity and vapor for automation, it will beat any automation system out there, because gravity doesn't fail, the vapor doesn't wear out, and you're not maintaining robotics, you're not having to treat beds, there's so much cost that's taken out of the system. Like even for the large manufacturers, you know, the Stratasys, and they should be looking at, holy smokes, gravity assisted automation, why are we not doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they either keep the margin or they can provide a more cost-effective solution to their customers. Either way, and it's more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, we actually spoken to someone who's used Stratasys, or who beta tested Stratasys's automation system. And what a lot of automation systems out there do is either they're prohibitively expensive, or they end up moving the labor to a different part of the process. So like, it's almost like that joke, like, like, if I'm polluting outside the environment. So they're using automation to move labor outside of what's considered the 3D printing process, but it's ending up somewhere else. For example, those systems you see where the bed is taken out by a robotic arm and replaced with a new bed, so that like what Voodoo
like
Manufacturing
the AFS system,
did.
right?
The AFS is a little bit different. I'm talking more about how Voodoo Manufacturing does it, and a lot of industrial companies do it. They like take the bed with a part on it and completely remove it from the printer, and then put a new one in. That like doesn't get rid of the part removal step. You still need people to do that. It's just being done outside of the printer, and so it's not being counted as and your printer uptime does increase, but it's not being counted as like labor with the printer. It's now labor with all of this inventory of beds. I think the other one that does that is the array does that too, where the bed comes out with all the parts on it, and you have to reset it every 3 days. So stuff like that, like that, there have been a lot of like even when we went to Formnext 2 years ago, I think I saw 2 or 3 companies that had some kind of like robotic arm system that did that. And it ends up being really expensive because it's a lot of hardware, and you're just moving that labor. You're running more efficiently, but you're still preserving the amount of labor, and you're moving that labor to a different part of the process. Same thing with the
cheaper,
Stratasys
you might
system.
win, but you're not avoiding the fact that hours are being spent. And
you can bulk it, but it's still dependent on the number of parts you're printing. And if you're printing more parts, it's equating to more labor.
That's why I don't replace screens on resin printers anymore. It's not. Ooh. Well, that was some loud thunder. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if that's coming through my mic.
We can hear it,
That was really loud. I have a battery now, Mother Nature. Oh, don't do that, Grant. Don't piss off Mother Nature. She'll strike your house.
Is it hurricane season yet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's been hurricane season for a few months. There's no tropical. This is normal. This is actually just normal. It's weird, but it's normal. Is the system, and the vapor bed to me is kind of that key. Similar to PEI, when it's cold, it releases, but yours releases way better. I something like 5 or 6 kilos of regular hold, and then 50 grams or something like that. The numbers were there.
500 times more adhesive when it's hot than when it's cold.
Yeah, 8 kilos to 15 grams on PLA. Yeah.
8 kilos to 15 grams.
Yeah.
So even if I wanted to do a big part, there's no problem here. It's going to stick.
Yeah. So the big parts, like people say, oh, you can't print big parts on an automated bed because it won't release. Like, no, they do. Like people don't have an idea of how well the parts release. Like, it's almost as if like the part is just on the bed, and there's like a little bit of static electricity or something holding the part in place, but there's no, like, you don't need to use your printer as a battering ram to like force the part off, right? It's actually just sliding the part off, and it's connected to the bed with.
Didn't Ultimaker do that as a joke? They did a big punching arm to knock the parts off their bed. I feel like they did that.
I've seen that before.
I've seen that for the Rostock Max. I saw someone built that because that was the first printer I had.
Was it Thomas and Ladder doing that?
Maybe.
It sounds like I saw it somewhere. It's just like, one of those extendable punching arms just punching parts off the bed.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, oh
no, it's not like that. I've seen that video and I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not ideal.
I have a clip of it if you want to see our protest.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Just show you, this is a pull test that Mateo did, and he was just using, you can see it, this is when the bed's hot, so you can see that it's 8 kilos, and there's his feather.
Yeah,
that is a way. What?
We also have on our YouTube channel, we have a part where we printed like on the whole CR10 bed, just like a 5 millimeter tall part by, I don't know, Stephen, was it like 28 centimeters wide or something?
Like, it was like, I think it was 270 by 270.
Okay.
So like
by
almost
5.
as big as the full CR10 bed.
Yeah. And then that got removed too. So it was, and like, I guess people have done stuff with glass and PEI. But like I said earlier, when making this solution, I wanted to make something that's reliable, that doesn't introduce more edge cases to the process.
Right.
Because you can get away with some other types of beds with certain shapes of parts, but it might not work 100% of the time, or it might not work for certain shapes of parts. So like with the direction we're going in, where the software will be available separately, people can come up with their own systems. They can even connect it to belt printers if they wanted to. But if you want something that's really, really reliable, and you won't have to think about, is this part going to work or not? Or is this part just going to get stuck in the middle of the night and destroy my printer?
Right.
That's what the Vapor is for.
These videos are ridiculous, by the way.
That was really fun to film.
I can imagine it was.
Yeah.
Gosh, I would love to see. So like, the skeptic is like, well, that could just be camera magic. It'd be fun to have like a continuous recording that's just sped up with a clock in there. So I think we
have the raw videos available for the full tests. Actually, I think I did a couple where it's just like the 20 minutes or whatever it took to cool it down in that room.
Yeah, I think so. Well, actually, 3D Print General, when he first covered the system a year and a bit ago, he was so excited with the bed. He said, I wonder if I can blow this part off. And he literally does.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Okay, well, now I'm going to have to try that, because
you have to do that.
I might have a Quinly system. I teased it in Wednesday's video, but in this past Wednesday's video and in this coming Wednesday's video. I'm bad with this stuff. We do have a question from John Kim. What is the maximum operating temperature of Vapor print beds?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
The highest I've tested, like with actually printing on it, the highest I think we tested, Steven, was 135, right, for nylon?
I think I got it up to 140, and no issues with the bed getting to that temperature. I really want to print Peak on.
I'm thinking Peak, Peck, and Ultem right there. If I could make, and I there might be some companies actually. I think they're relatively local to you. Aon 3D, AON. They're
like in Washington.
Yeah.
I thought they were in Canada. I could be wrong. They've got printers that can do Peak, Peck, and Ultem. And when I look at, doing production runs for a large company like a Boeing or somebody like that, for some reason they don't have their own systems. They do, but maybe they for some reason are outsourcing it. And they need 1,000 of a Ultem part. Oh my gosh, if I could just click print and
go.
That's it, right? Alamanta, am I saying that right?
Amantea.
Amantea. Grant, I should tell you, using Quinly, I was able to clear a 4-month backlog of prints in under 2 weeks in my farm. All right, now I want to know what farm you're using and how many of these systems you have. This will be very curious to me, because it is nice to see, how many people are using, why they're using them, and all that.
Yeah, we've had Quinly print over 2 million parts to date. And I would say we're the best kept secret in 3D printing, because when people are using it for their business, they don't want to tell anybody else because they don't want them to know. But that's a lot of prints for a new tech that really was only available on a couple printers until recently.
What were the printers that you focused on when you first started?
So first Ender 3, because that's what Mateo had been developing on in the first place, and it's a huge base, and there are a lot of farms, and then the Prusa, and then I think Sidewinder.
So we went to the Sidewinder and CR10 because people were wanting it for the bigger printers.
Yeah,
and the Ender and the Prusa are about the same size in terms of print volume, so.
Yeah,
being able to automate like big parts like cosplays, props, and helmets and stuff. Some people were really interested in that.
So this
Yeah.
is not just for if I need to make 1,000 of something. It's I've got a couple of printers and I need to print 80 pieces. I just queue them all up and the software just...
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's one of our customers, he does really cool dinosaur skeleton, like huge dinosaur models, and they're all different parts, and he prints every single bone as a separate print on the Quinly queue. And like he gets his STL files from 3D scans of like actual dinosaur bones from museums. It's really cool. But yeah, he uses it as not as like printing the same part over and over again. He uses it as like a queue system for like his 80 bones in his dinosaur skeleton.
That I did
Yeah, all
not know was
unique ones.
possible. That is cool. Gosh, I've got a print queue right now, and I've been so busy this morning, I never hit print. Like, and that is,
No.
it's just one of those, oh, I got to get on the live stream. Damn it, I forgot to put things on SD cards and click print. Right?
Yeah.
And that means I just burned a couple of hours. It's no big deal, but it's just more of, oh, damn it.
But it can be a big deal if it affects when the prints will be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For
Now
these
your whole
ones, it
schedule has
doesn't,
been
but
thrown off.
Yeah.
yeah, in some cases that can be a massive problem. In others, it ain't that big of a deal, right? It's totally acceptable. But from a business standpoint, oh my gosh, right? That's a big thing. So to get the value out of the Quinly system, utilizing that cloud system is required, correct? The queuing system?
That's local.
It's all local.
Yeah, right now it's all local. We're introducing
Whoa.
some cloud features because the pies are not powerful enough to do some of the stuff that we want to do. But
Okay.
like things like
okay.
file storage, you have the option, you can just do it locally. We haven't even released cloud file storage yet. Yeah, it's because I know like the whole point is if you're distributing printers everywhere, it can be hard to have internet access to
Yeah.
them all the time. And so like we always want the core functionality to be local, leverage like, you know, the devices that you have on site. But some stuff like, you know, if you're trying to run off of Pi zeros or something, you might have to shift some of the features to be cloud-based or internet-based because you just, you know, simply wouldn't be able to run those features on such low-powered devices. Things like QuinlyVision gets more complicated. Like we're still in the early stages of designing it, but
right.
there's stuff like, you know, spaghetti detection and flame detection is, you can kind of get away with doing it locally if you have a good Pi or good, you know, microcontroller. But then if you want things like that, the GIF that you saw on Reddit, like the whole 3D render, at least for now, it looks like that would be like a cloud only feature.
I mean,
Yeah,
that
you
to me
gotta-
was just cool. I don't know the
Yeah,
purpose that I would use it for, but it's just cool.
it's
Well,
good for, oh, go ahead.
ahead.
Steph.
I was going to say it's good for inspection.
Yeah,
And it's good for, you know, if you're not
Okay,
at
I'm
your
spoiled
printer,
there.
if you're somewhere else that you know, and there's something you check in on your print and you're not happy with the way it's looking, or you're wondering how it's looking, you pull out the render, you go back through time a little and you look at the different sides and you go, oh, I see what's happening with this.
yeah, or like, you know, I know this happens to us sometimes, like we'll ship parts, right? We're always shipping parts out. And if you want to go back in time to look at how a part might have changed, or if there's an issue with a certain part that you ship, if you shipped it, you can't look at that part anymore. But if there's like a 3D scan available somewhere for you to look at, then you can still go back and do quality control. And that gets more into the industrial applications of it.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. When you're
But
doing
it's also
stuff
just
where
like,
microns matter.
yeah, it's like a good visual like inspection tool. And it's like, yeah, it's also just really fun. It looks really cool.
It is.
But
it is. Yeah, it is.
yeah, but it's like it's for visual inspection. Actually, like that part of that experiment that got posted on Reddit too is, we use the 3D to help with detection as well. So you might not even be looking at the scan most of the time. It's really there to facilitate better detection, which is why we don't have that on the Discord bot. But that's like one of those steps that makes the detection really, really accurate. And when I was messing around with it, I'm like, oh, wow, this looks really cool. So I want to make a video and show people it's a good demo of what's going on under the hood, because something I think a lot of people don't see is just how much work has to go into the back end of the software to make something really, really reliable, with the automation as well. But even with the machine vision, it's not like you can just collect a bunch of photos of fails and then use an off-the-shelf model. You actually have to think about data pipelines and data augmentation, and consider things like where the printer is in the print, or even linking back to things like G-code. It's really complicated. So the 3D scan was like, I think one of the first times I've been able to show what's going on under the hood in like a visual way. So I thought it'd be really cool.
And one of the things you may not know, Grant, just from looking at the scan, is that it can be done even with a bunch of still images, and it fills in the blanks in terms of what it doesn't see. And so it is it literally sort of sees around corners.
Could I use it to do 3D scanning?
No, it's actually, the technique is really interesting. It's not actually a 3D model. Like it actually generates really bad 3D models. It's really good for visual inspection. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's like, if you were to use something for 3D scanning, I would suggest using something like OpenScan, which gives you really high accurate models. But this specifically was to help like turbocharge the visual detection of stuff, and give our models a sense of like, rather than just inspecting a 2D image, you get way more information if you can look around slightly.
Oh yeah.
And it just makes the model like way more accurate in terms of detection.
Well, and it's interesting how you develop one piece of tech and then it kind of informs some of the other stuff we're doing. So with the 3D, of course, to get true 360, you need two cameras, because one can't see 360. But the interesting thing with two cameras, when we take that back to our time lapses, we've got a new seamless time lapse function coming. You have to know which side of the printer that camera is on. And so Mateo's developed this smart piece in the software, so it knows and it remembers where the camera is. Well, you have a bunch of different printers. You take some printers offline, you put them back online. How does the software now know which camera was on which printer and which side the camera was on? Because for the time lapses, to get the nozzle out of the way, it literally has to be out of the shot, right? For
I'm aware.
Shot.
We run a octolapse setup.
Yeah,
but it's
so
4 seconds. Every freaking picture takes 4 seconds. It's because I have an
Does it stall for 4 seconds, or the movement takes 4 seconds?
No, the move happens in sub half a second. It has to trigger the camera has to wake up, it has to take a photo, which, given the fact I don't have tons of lighting, the shutter speed is kind of low. Like we run 1/8 of a second for shutter speed. And then I have to, I give it a little bit of a dwell time to make sure that the camera did take the photo, and you don't get like a print head randomly moving into the shot every photo. And that's why we get bad stringing, because it's very, very difficult to deal with that. And I am looking to go over to a more digital setup, but damn it, these DSLRs, they just look better than using like a webcam or something like that. So.
Well, so
I see.
I think
got it.
Ours takes photos faster, which Mateo can talk about.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Well, I guess I don't know how it would perform with the DSLR, but I know that we actually wrote we recently added time lapse, and we wrote the everything from scratch, because we did test Octolapse before, and there are a couple things that the way they were doing it made it incompatible with our system. So we're like, okay, we'll just, write our own that's fully integrated with the farm stuff. Like, for example, Steph was saying, if you have different printers, you can have different time-lapse settings for each printer, and your G code will get like dynamically processed based
So
on what
nice.
printer it got sent to.
So
So,
nice.
And
but
just
the
I
speed
wanna-
too, I think Max worked really hard on getting it, like, it basically moves, and by the time it finishes the move, the photo's been like, it takes the photo and instantly moves back. I don't
I
think we
think it's like
edited
less than
well.
half a second of pause, like printer
I
staying
think we got
still.
rid of it.
I think my setup just sucks, to be honest.
Could be. I don't know.
Well, I
It's,
think just using a DSLR is different than a webcam. That's kind of
Yeah, I think a DSLR would have to be like, I don't know
for the
how it
content, we got to have the clarity of the DSLR. But
Yeah.
I think it's Beagle Print is their name. They make a standalone system. Let me make sure that I'm saying it correct. Yes, Beagle Print. We are getting one of their cameras to test out, because they're telling me that it should be the quality of a DSLR, but it's a standalone system that runs. It'll run everything.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
But I would rather have an all-in-one system that can handle all of my work. I'm looking at the comments. Amantia.
Amantia.
Damn it! Sorry, I'm so bad with names. Amantia. I guess that makes sense, Grant.
Al is fine.
Al. We're gonna go with Al.
I'm talking for Al.
They're saying that they moved to Quinly many months ago, coming from Octoprint with continuous print plugin. It's really a night and day change. You'll never go back to anything other than Quinly for their print.
We love you, Al.
And
He,
to see that it's 4 printers off the single Pi 4, that's pretty awesome.
yeah.
That's the Quinly Pro thing. What is that? Can you talk about Quinly Pro?
Yeah, do you want Steph?
Yeah,
There's some
sure.
silence here. We
I
can move
did-
past.
Yeah,
I
I was like,
thought-
I didn't know who was gonna answer.
I
Yeah,
thought Mateo was going to talk about.
I can.
Yeah, you might as well talk about where we are with the beta, and then we can tell
Sure.
say where it's going from here.
Yeah, so I guess our initial goal with just Quinly was to bring automation to 3D printers, and I think we've pretty much reached that goal. And what Quinly Pro is we actually started this software. We started working on farm software before Quinly was even a thing. For about 1.5 years, I think we were working on farm software, and then COVID happened, and we realized, okay, we can't go and do installs on site, so we have to create something kittable. And so Quinly Pro is kind of going back to that farm automation software, and it's basically now you have a bunch of automated printers. What kind of cool farm stuff can you do when you network these automated printers together? Because there's a lot of farm operation that you can automate as well. And one of the key things that'll be available with Quinly Pro is a lot of like dashboards that help you make decisions based on actual data. So I think pretty much anyone with more than 2 printers could understand how hard it is to actually put like quantitative data to how your print farm is going. Even some huge print farms we talk to, like, it's just too much of a hassle to collect information about your production. And so usually there's like, there's like one guy who's like, oh, these printers don't work really well for these types of prints, so just don't put prints on those printers. Or like, this printer's set up for ABS this week, so put ABS on there. And usually that boils down to one person just doing everything kind of on the back of a napkin or from like off the dome, and it gets really, really hard to scale anything. And a lot of operations don't even know some key numbers about their production. Like when we speak to print farms, a lot of them don't actually know their true downtime, because the only downtime they keep track of is when the person is there watching the machines. So if I'm there and I see like, oh yeah, I get, 75% of the printers running while I'm there, and I'm not keeping track of the printers that are running when I'm not there, I'll have no idea what my downtime is. So the idea with Pro is to automate all of that
That's nice.
collection of that information so that you can see it in a nice dashboard, and also make automated decisions based off of that information. So how should I distribute filament across my print farm to get rid of my queue really quickly? Or how should I, I don't have to think about which printers to send jobs to, because every printer is tagged a certain way and every job is tagged a certain way, and the matching just happens automatically. So it's like that next layer of automation on top of automated printers. It's kind of like, you might have a factory with a lot of automated machines inside, and now this is like a factory management system that gives you a bird's eye view of everything.
I would love to track that information. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so also think about, in terms of queuing, you were talking about, I didn't start my print queue. On a farm, you put everything into a central queue, and the queue knows which printers are compatible with which prints. And so it just tells, it says,
will distribute.
Yeah.
Sold.
There's
Yeah,
a really
it's
good
really
tagging
cool.
system that they came up with, which you set tags to your G-code files and you set tags onto your printers, and the queue will only send G-code files that match the tags of the printers.
Yep.
Like this printer back here has a diamond nozzle, so it prints it 20C colder than everything else.
Yep.
Have to put that in there. It doesn't need to do ironing, so if you need a part that needs to be ironed, set it to that printer, because the diamond tip is polished and irons on its own.
Right.
The one here, Grant. Oh, your head's in the way now, Grant. The one right there behind me, the one of my big ass head's in the way. Is a hardened nozzle. It doesn't run often because it needs to run 20C hotter. And so
now you can have one G-code file, and it matches the profile, and it knows this one's hotter, this one's colder. It does all that for you. You don't have to worry about it.
So we're adding temperature offsets into this stuff as well, and speed offsets, and maybe even flow offsets.
I love that. And like from a farm perspective, I'm gonna stick with one brand. I mean, clearly I've made my decision. It's gonna be Prusa. So like, other than temperature offsets for different customized printers, speed offsets are gonna basically be the same, unless we see excess wear in the bearings. Or something like that, where, okay, we got to order in new bearings or something like that. That blows my mind. Because, like, I track downtime when machines are broken.
Yeah.
I don't track downtime when they're not running.
Right.
But that's also
it's really not worth it to track, because it takes so much of your effort to actually track this stuff.
It's too hard.
Oh, it's way too hard. Yeah, I don't bother with any of it, because I'll set up the system and then I'll forget to do it once, and the data's ruined anyways.
Yeah.
There's no point in trying, because at that point the data has been skewed. And when we do data collection for processes, we make sure that we make it consistent. Consistent data is the only thing you can really look at and say, okay, this printer's starting to fail more often. What is wrong? Right? Oh, we're seeing it skipping steps in this direction. Check the bearings.
Right.
Exactly.
And if you're not tracking those metrics, you might not know that you have one of your ball bearings is failing, or a V wheel is worn a little bit. That kind of stuff, man.
So later on down the line, we're actually thinking of, our plan is to have QuinlyVision integrated with the stats and analytics that the farm's tracking. So you can actually see like, hey, this printer's getting layer shifts 50% more than all the other printers. You've probably got something weird with your motion system, or you need to do a maintenance.
Have like an area for troubled children.
Yeah.
Yes, you can have like a little timeout zone.
So we have a little dunce cap we put on our timeout machines. sits in the corner. But
I have
but
literally told people before, just turn it off, leave it off overnight, let it think about what it's done. And 9 times out of 10, that solves
Yeah.
most the how in the hell is this happening failures.
well, the
Maybe
other
it's
thing, the other thing
go
that's a
ahead.
challenge, no, it's okay. It's a challenge for farms that is that, Grant, if you take a printer out and you go and repair it and you put it back in, you have to reset everything up, right?
Yeah.
Like, so Mateo's team has actually put in fingerprinting for printers. So now every single printer has unique ID. And so it remembers when that printer comes back online. It's like, oh, hey, you're George, or you're Stella, or whatever.
Ours all have unique colors, so their accent colors
Yeah.
are all different.
It's interesting. Like, I think every farm has come up with their own system of like numbering or coloring them.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't see those colors in the software is the trouble. And so the actually it depends how many people you have running your farm, but I've heard people complain about like, I mean, this has even happened on ours where people switch printers around and you don't necessarily know. And then you start sending prints to the wrong printer.
Wrong printer, yep.
With the ID system, the way Max and I designed it was so that eventually you could even move that printer to a different PI. And as long as it was in your, I guess, your account, the other PI would recognize that printer. It would know that the printer has been moved. So the information actually gets carried across. Even if you were to plug it in at a different location, it'll still recognize that printer and be like, oh, this is a printer. This is all of its history, which is the important part, like, especially with fails. That doesn't get reset when you move your printers around or when you shut your printer off and put it back on, as it does with some other farm softwares. Like a lot of, I think one of the farms I was talking to that used, I think they used Octo Farm before. They had an issue where if they were to shut their machine off, it wouldn't be recognized and plug it back in. It wouldn't be recognized as the same machine again.
Correct. Yeah, that's a big problem with the Octofarm software. It will just, if your printer is off of the system for too long, it can actually assign it a new IP, and your old printer just disappeared. I have this problem when my Pi resets, that it will assign itself a new IP on my network, and I'm not able to find it anymore on my damn network. But that's a static IP issue. But
that's a router thing. But even still, like, if they're all networked together, you would only have to go find one of the IPs anyway. Right. The other interesting thing with the ID system too is specifically the complaint that person had. We spoke with that farm a lot when designing the system. Like, their issue was that if the ID got reassigned, they couldn't track parts that were made anymore. Like, they have to know, they have a separate person for packing orders. And so that person needs to know where prints are coming off. And with that, the Octofarm system, if a printer was to drop off or change ID, they wouldn't be able to tell where in the farm a part is. And so it made packing and order fulfillment really, really difficult. Whereas this, our ID system that we worked on with him, actually, even if you move the printer, it would know that printer has been moved somewhere else. And even if you flash the firmware on that printer, you can recover its history. And so that history travels with the printer. And so does that, like, its queue, and you'll know what parts are coming off of it. It's stuff like that a lot of people don't really think about, but it is something that you're always doing in your head as a farm operator.
It just comes naturally, but that makes it difficult to train other people.
And it takes so much of your mental effort too.
You're solving these big problems that business owners have. and especially these startup companies of, we can't easily train people to do what we do because a lot of it, I've been doing it for over a decade. It's just intrinsic. And this system truly solves that problem. And that's what's amazing to me. And we actually have Peter from Wham Bam is in the comments now too. This solution to me makes me not have to be the guy that also runs the farm.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And that's a big freaking deal. The ability to properly outsource outsourcing by insourcing, if that makes sense, right? Hire someone to do it for me would be amazing. The fact that I could say, hey, if Amber's here and I'm not, maybe I'm out at a meeting and she's just hanging out at the shop. Better 3/4 is Amber. I say, hey, can you just start this print for me? She won't have to ask what printer, what material. It's all taken care of.
Yeah.
Everything will be validated. It will verify. Oh my gosh. That would mean that I could bring an untrained individual in that knows nothing of running a print farm and just say, it's simple. Click print. The system handles everything else for you.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're
I'd be a customer of that,
making sure
guaranteed.
there's good G code in your file system, like anyone could start prints and have it be assigned to the correct printer, even be given those offsets.
So I could even start it remotely too.
Yeah, you can start it.
That's
I was
true.
going to say you can start it from anywhere.
Because it
I
won't
forgot about that part. Yeah.
No, and where you want someone there is just to make sure there's filament on that printer. But even that we're going to be taking care of soon, so it'll tell you whether there is or not. But that's
well,
that's part of the whole history system. Is it'll be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like estimate if you've got filament going to run out soon, it'll say, hey, you probably only have about 100 grams left.
Yeah.
Change the roll soon.
Yeah, it's not going to be as perfect as like an encoder or a filament sensor, but we're really trying to make the software as powerful as possible without you having to add things to your machines, like add additional sensors. Even with QuinlyVision, detecting 14 types of fails, and all you have to do is add a webcam rather than adding 14 individual sensors, because a webcam is going to get you like 80 or 90% of the way there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I've told you I want to do an episode of Print Fix Friday where it's me versus QuinlyVision.
I want to do that.
The new model in our Discord is about 30 times better than the one that you tried a couple weeks ago. So maybe give it another shot. I don't know if it's good enough for Print Fix Friday yet because it's so like shrunken down, but it's a lot better now. I would try it again.
I just think it would be fun to see what a computer says versus what I think, and then I get to argue with an AI, and that just sounds like fun to me.
That sounds scary.
My plan is to run small production batches with the Quinly system that we got. And again, thank you guys for sending that over. I appreciate that. The goal is to show the prowess of it. And it's actually because of your system that I talked about a project I've been working on for a long time now called The Politician. It's my heater and filter combination for resin and FDM 3D printers. It's capable of getting chambers well above 60 degrees centigrade, printing it out of PETG, so you don't want to really go above 70 if you can afford it. And the system is hard locked at 75. It will not go above 75C. And there's really no good way to do a production of that without having an automated system. And so as someone I've all but written off Etsy and Facebook Marketplace as places that I want to do business because all the logistics behind running prints, really that's probably the easier part of it, but it's dealing with the customer service aspect is probably the more complicated. Can you write a program to do that for me, please? That'd be great. I would pay a non-trivial amount of money to have that. But to automate the process of just getting the orders in. Hey, someone ordered it. Order goes to the printer just starts it. Doesn't even care. Would be, or gets thrown into the queue. Would be absolutely amazing. And if we do a base price with a color, right? You know, let's say it's this is printed solid yellow, bro. This is the fan duct for the latest prototype. And it just auto starts it. And if they want a different color, the system will say, hey, that color's not loaded in this printer, but this one's got it. Go put it on that printer. Amazing. Amazing. Oh, and apparently Quinly Pro will have Etsy and Shopify integration for the Q.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Is that Al saying that?
That is Al saying that.
Something we're
Al,
working on.
I don't know if you signed
Yeah.
an NDA, but you might want to be careful of
No,
things
no,
you're
it's okay.
saying.
No, we were
Yeah.
talking about that on stream
He's
last
like-
week.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
Al
did
is-
miss that stream, so I didn't.
Al
I
helped us
try to
so
make
much.
them, but sometimes I'm busy. But yeah, we talked about this, right? Talking with you guys and getting you on the podcast, actually the impetus for last Wednesday's episode, which is how to start your own 3D printing business, because it moves me directly into showing your system and showing how it can enable a business to not need 39 printers. If I had 4 Prusas running the Quinly system with QuinlyVision and apparently Quinly Pro, I can effectively run a multi-million-dollar a year business out of a small room in my house. And that to
actually,
me is phenomenal.
We're planning on adding the spaghetti detection and smoke and fire detection to all kinds of all the Quinly products that we do. So like QuinlyVision will take a long time, but spaghetti isn't much of a problem for us. It's an easy one to detect.
Does it integrate into like Home Assistant, Casa, ALEXA, the one I can't say or my clock will
That's
yell
like
at me?
that's long term. I think that's a bit too that's like much further down the road. Like yeah, that's probably like really reaching the extent of the automation that we'd want to do, because there's so much left to do with just getting printers running and print farms running automatically that yeah, it'd be crazy, you know, you detect fire and just shut off the circuit to a certain printer.
And that's what ours does, right? So technically every printer is on its own smart plug, and then every bank is on its own smart plug as well.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about doing with both Quinly and QuinlyVision Quinly Pro and QuinlyVision was to make API access available so that you could write your own routines to do stuff like that. This was particularly with QuinlyVision, we were talking about it so that, you know, if people wanted to build their own response based on what was being detected, they could do something more complicated.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly. So doing that kind of stuff.
You're blowing
because
my mind
people will have
now.
People will have all kinds of edge cases that they want to handle. So that might not make sense for us to develop, but you know, it might make sense for one person to spend some time getting it to work perfectly for them. That's kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, the other thing, Mateo, is getting stuff to people faster, because we only have, you know, so many resources. And for instance, the Voron community has been, you know, asking us to do automation. If we can get them to take over some of that development, then, you know, we can get a product out to them faster.
Yeah,
like
if you had a
having them
Patreon,
design
we could
hardware.
support you guys and help with the cost of development. Yeah, you didn't think I was going to remember that,
Oh,
did
no.
you? And that's kind of the deal, right? Everything you're doing right now is the QuinlyVision itself is still in beta. Your plan is to charge for it, correct? It will be closed source. It's not going to be open source, correct?
It's going to be open source, but it's not going to be free.
Wait, it's going to be open source?
Well, the API.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So like the interface and like the app and the APIs will be open. So you can add stuff to the app and access the APIs. But, you know, obviously if you're spam pinging our cloud servers, that will charge for those resources. But yeah, the other stuff will be open. Yeah.
Is it possible for me to set up a computer that does all the processing. Because this is we were talking about my problem with the SnapMaker earlier, that any data being sent about what I'm doing on the printers doesn't, like, pictures of what we're printing doesn't really come to violating NDAs, but I promise you the people that have those NDAs with us would be pretty pissed off about it. So is there a way that we could run it locally and not deal with a cloud server?
That's a good question. A few people have asked us about this, and I think it would come down to, because the full model is pretty, like, resource intensive,
Right.
at low scales. So, like, it kind of relies on there being a lot of people using it. But I think it would kind of be on a case-to-case basis, because I know it makes sense to offer offline stuff like that. And there's actually one of the farms that we're talking to right now, they just straight up don't have good internet access at their farm. So what we've decided
I
is
apparently don't
we'll
either.
yeah, we'll try to make as much of it offline as possible. And then for stuff that isn't offline, you know, maybe you'll be able to run at a reduced capacity, or I don't know. It's hard to say right now what is actually technically possible to do. I'm not opposed to the idea of allowing, like, on-site installs, but you'll still have to perform updates somehow. So, and that gets into a whole, like, you know, how do you do offline updates and that kind of thing.
A flash drive that I can pull from one computer, put it into the air-gapped computer, and it does that's a thing for us, because, like, we routinely print ITAR, CMMC work, we do NDA covered stuff. And yeah, I could just move the camera, so, you know, or run it on the SD card for those particular cases. But it would be nice to have something that is, you know, local. It is not a necessity. I'm going to put that out there. It's not a necessity. It's a nicety.
So the interesting thing, I think, from that perspective is, with moving the software out of, you know, decoupling it from the hardware, we are going to offer some different software bundles. And one of your options will be to use printers that are maybe, you know, not fully automated or not with vision or whatever, to be able to use them in conjunction with your regular ones and still get the full farm functionality.
That's nice.
And as much automation as you want or need. So we have a customer right now who's saying, look, my prints, I have this really cool project, the opportunity, but I need to stop the print, do some stuff manually, and then start the print again. Can that work with these new, with the software? And I said, well, with the new software, yes, because you can program in a stop, you can, and you can run sort of manual printers and not ruin all your farm stats and stuff, because it'll still be feeding information to the farm system, but it won't necessarily, it will not, in their case, these 10 printers out of their 40 or whatever are not going to be automatically removing parts. They have to do some manual stuff on the printer. And so that's what when Mateo talks about also taking care of edge cases, a lot of our automation is already getting adapted to take care of edge cases. Like you say, you've got
supporting mods.
Yeah, you got a job where you maybe want QuinlyVision running locally, but not the full package. Well, we might say to you, look, you can run this many failures locally. And you say, well, here's the ones I'm worried about. You say, let's say that Mateo, and we don't know because we haven't done all the R&D, you know, testing on it yet, but let's say he says, look, you can run 3 fails. Like that's what you can run locally.
Right.
Then maybe you can pick the 3 for those jobs where you're going, okay, I can detect these locally. They're not going into the cloud. So now I can run those jobs on that.
I dig that.
Right. So that's the kind of automation and modularity that we're working with, and then trying to give it to you to be able to customize as much as you want. So even with, you know, some people like a belt printer, or they have their own, you know, system with maybe a glass bed and a tilt where they're already kind of pushing parts off, or they've developed their own arm or whatever. So with the new feature sets, one of the sets will allow you to program in your own wipe, your own open and close, you know, your beginning and end code. And so
Whoa.
you don't have to have vapor, you don't have to have, you know, but you can have all that automation and stats tracking and all the functionality.
Yeah, like as much as your hardware will allow.
Will allow. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I love
And
this. I love this. You guys don't have to support anything outside of your system. You can say, use our system or don't use it. But if you don't use our system, you don't get to use any of the software. But you're saying, no, we want you to use the software, whether you choose to use Vapor, you choose to use your own system. That is what this industry is all about. You could close source the hell out of this, wall garden it all day, and I would still use it, by the way. Would still use the hell out of it. But the fact that you're allowing people to present their own solutions that work for them, and they're just looking for that extra bit of software, that extra bit of AI detection, that extra bit of this or that, is amazing to me. That is what this industry is about.
Yeah, well, because a lot of people have figured out how to get their prints off their printer without them having to be there. And there's all kinds of things. Like I saw on the 3D printing subreddit, there was a guy with like a shoelace connecting his bed to his printer, and they were upside down. And
I like the upside down.
Like, yeah, they figured out the automated part removal, but they still need help with the queuing and the file management and the farm management and AI and all this stuff that it's much harder to develop a solution for. So if you have like this, you know, really like robust software that you can plug all your self-automated printers into, you can really like optimize your farm, but your farm, not the one that we want you to have.
Exactly. And that's
like, because for I was just gonna say, like, for that case in particular, like, he sacrifices half of his print bed for that system that he designed, but that works for him. That's fine.
Yeah, for his
large or
part.
small, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And we are developing this because of either what we need or what our customers need. So we have a customer's come to us recently. He does miniatures, and he said, you know, one of the things with the vapor bed is it has different temperature settings.
Right.
And he said, oh, I have 2,000 files for all these different miniatures. I don't want to re-slice 2,000 files. And that's why we were saying, well, temperature's no problem.
We'll implement temperature offset so that you can use your old, actually, there are 2 farms that have that requirement, but you can use your old G code and then just post-process the temperatures to whatever you need them to be.
That's awesome.
And it'll remember it because you've got the printer ID and everything, and you've got the tagging on the files. So now the software is, you know, you do it once and the software does all the repeatability for you.
I was going to pull the fail out of the trash, but it's a little further down there. My idiot brain fat fingered instead of 205 for layer 2. It was 25.
Ooh.
And because it's a lulz bot, it doesn't know that. So overnight, it printed at 25C and ruined the entire print. That one obviously is not at 25C, but a Prusa would have warned me. Even though I was slicing in Prusa Slicer, the printer would alert me and say, hey, it's getting a little cold. Sure you want to do this? Lulzbot's like, we don't give a shit. Let's do it. And that's why it sounds like someone is either abusing a dog or some sort of animal in the background. I apologize. This was supposed to be a 2-day, 2-hour print, which should have been done about 2 hours before we started today, but man,
still going.
But yes, to me, the ability to integrate in whatever level that you want is kind of that key. I was going to ask, like, what sets you apart from others? I don't need to ask that question. You guys have been talking about that for nigh on the past 2 hours. It is so fascinating to me. And when everything is like full launch, we got to have you back on to really kind of see where we were at now versus where we're at like full public release. Is there a date that you're thinking of, or are we not going to jinx it?
So are you talking about QuinlyVision or the new feature sets?
Everything.
Okay.
So when does the current pipeline end?
Yeah, so very soon. We're starting to release feature sets this week. So the first one is called Auto Print 3D, and that's literally automating your printer, or very close to what's currently, in your Quinly kits, but decoupling the hardware. So now you can do your custom wipe, you can do start and end code, and you can do your own hardware solution, your own bed, whatever. But Auto Print 3D will be the software set that you will want for automating your printer. Then the next one coming out after that will be Click Print. And Click Print is literally a manual, it's for manual printers, but it has the fire and spaghetti detection 24/7. It has a lot of that data collection, the automated queue. You don't have to keep track of things. Like if you have 1 or 2 printers, you may still have 10 or 20 things you want to print.
Right.
So this will help you. You can kind of just throw them into your print queue, and then it'll tell you when stuff is done. And, it's a nice to have, and it's just a simpler version.
It's also just the remote access.
And the remote access.
Yep.
And it'll work with QuinlyVision later when that comes out, and so on. And then the next one after that, by the end of this month, is Auto Farm, which will have what we were talking about before. So all of this driven by that Quinly engine, but in different feature sets, so that people can go, oh, I want farm, I want printer, I just want remote access.
Yeah.
So actually last week we went over kind of a roadmap for our Quinly product. So we've been working on this, like this is still developing, but like we've been working on this for like the past month. But we've put together a roadmap, which we talked about for about like 2 hours on our live stream on our YouTube channel. And we've got the PDF on our Discord if you want to see what kind of features are planned, what features are currently implemented. Yeah.
And then,
so it's going to be like a progression of features. It's not just like we're going to have nothing and then we're going to dump everything at once. It's going to be, we're introducing a new feature each month, and we're going to beta that feature, and then we're going to introduce it to the full release.
And the nice thing is that it'll be auto updates, so you don't have to run around with SD cards to update your printers. And then QuinlyVision itself is because it's AI and it requires just a lot more data and everything. It'll be next year, but we'll be releasing as the modules of, as it becomes highly functional. For instance, we're quite confident with spaghetti and the
and
fire.
streaming.
Right.
And
right.
fire.
So that, that's being released first. And then as the other failures become more, we have a higher confidence interval, then we release those. But the whole thing will be available next year.
Yeah, like all 14, everything in that. But but as Steph said, like spaghetti and fire are actually going to be releasing in these products that we're doing now, and just regular Quinly. And I should also,
by default, everyone gets spaghetti and fire detection, because obviously you want to know if things are going horribly wrong.
I like that you focused on the necessities and not the fun stuff, right? Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's great to detect all different types of print issues, but knowing if it's turned into spaghetti and knowing if it's on fire are 2 very important things for me.
Yeah.
Neither happens often, and apparently I have to try to get printers to catch fire around here.
Right.
But it is something that, especially if you're just starting out, man.
It's just that peace of mind, right? I mean, you have insurance. What's the chances of any of that stuff happening? It's really just, it's peace of mind, because it does happen no matter how remote the possibility. So
that's why it's just available on even the lowest levels.
Yeah.
I love that. This is exciting. So guys, I put 3DQ's link to their Patreon. I don't have a Patreon. Get a Patreon to their YouTube channel in the comments. Help me by bothering them to get a Patreon so we can help help provide some assistance on the development process and help make it so the developers can eat more than ramen noodles, Doritos, and Mountain Dew. I'm being mean to developers.
If there's something people can do to
That's
help
true.
us, it's actually to spread the word, because we're the best kept secret in 3D printing, it seems.
It is. Yeah, we had, who said this? Yeah, Ostrike said, automation is more significant than heated chambers. It's a crime there aren't more people watching this. And yeah, this actually, we have not had a ton of people watching this. But then Al said, I agree, but it's also a hidden secret advantage for those of us that are. And I think that's kind of the key. The key is you don't know you need this until you find it. And if you're doing this professionally, you've been needing this for a lot longer than you probably think. And so 3dq.com, QUE, they can find all the information. Go buy a Quinly kit. Keep an eye out for QuinlyVision. Go join the Discord. Are there any final thoughts that you guys have here?
I think it might be interesting to see. I really like what you said, like about the way that we were designing this stuff. There's actually, I remember, because we've been doing weekly live streams for over a year, and if you go way back to one of the old ones, there's something that me and Kevin were talking about the design philosophy that sets us apart with this type of software, which is exactly what you were saying, is give people options and make something that'll work with anything they throw at it. And I think that's something that we've managed to continue going forward. And I'll say, I don't think we could have done that without all of our beta testers. And in fact, all of these features we talked about here, you can actually beta test them. Before we release anything, we gather groups of beta testers, give them features early. They get direct input on stuff like UI design, stuff like workflow design. So I would definitely recommend anyone watching, if they go on our site, learn more about the beta programs that we have, because if you're in that program, you'll actually get a lot of say in how these features come out.
Are there particular skill sets that you're looking for in a beta tester? Because like, I'm an idiot when it comes to programming. I routinely describe myself when it comes to programming IT as an end user. So are you looking for end users? Are you looking for experienced people? What are you looking for in beta testers at this moment?
End users are perfect because they figure out how to break everything really fast.
I am very good at this. Our IT department can confirm.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. People who break stuff, and people who right now we're working on the farm stuff. So people who have been using multiple printers are able to understand their own blind spots when it comes to running a farm, and then being able to communicate those to us.
So
like,
mindfulness.
Here's something that could really help me. Yeah, exactly. Because we run our own farm, and so we learn a lot from that. But everyone, because of how 3D printing works, because it's like a million workarounds put on top of each other, everyone runs their farm a little bit differently. So it's really important when building a system that can work for everyone, it's really important to know how everyone uses their print farm, how different people use it differently.
I like it. You guys are giving people the license to print money. And I think that's a really cool tagline. And you are welcome to use it.
That is cool.
I won't even charge you.
The 3D
really
print
cool.
money, I think.
Yeah.
I like print money. It's just, if you know, you know. And if you don't, you're like, what the hell are they talking about? and then you get a cool call from like 3-letter organizations wondering what you're actually doing. And you get to have really cool conversations. But no, I'm excited. I think I got to sign up to be a beta tester because I am a pro at breaking things. It is why
you should,
our Raspberry Pi that runs Octoprint is still running Python 2. Because I am afraid to update it because I know I'm going to break it. And the guy that does all of our Python work has been busy. And I said, I have content creation to do. If it works, I ain't touching it.
Yeah,
I'm the
don't-
guy that has disabled Windows updates until I manually do it because I'm afraid of things breaking. That is the level. I have 2 business degrees. I just figured this stuff out the hard way. But I love this technology and I love what you guys are doing. And I know that I'm not alone here. When Peter from Wham Bam, who's former podcast guest and Filament Stories, are both saying you all are making phenomenal contributions to the advancement of the consumer farm market, that you're obviously doing quite a few things right. And I'm going to challenge Filament Stories because Courtney, former podcast guest as well, I love that they all keep coming back, has well over 600 spools. It'd be really cool for her to just utilize the spools as a farm. And I don't know, it'd be fun. But I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. Thank you guys for taking a system that I think a lot of us intrinsically knew that we needed, but because nothing existed and the vast majority of us are too dumb to figure it out, we never actually did. You're going to make my life a whole lot easier, and I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you for
Are there
having-
any other places that people can find you all?
Obviously the Discord, automated printing community. And as you've mentioned, YouTube and, our website. You'll be seeing the software coming up on our web pages very soon. So those are the main places to find us. Of course, Instagram, Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found you guys on Reddit, and that's kind of how things started for me. It was literally I was doing my research for a Print Fix Friday video. That's how I found it.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So I think it's awesome. I love what you all are doing. Absolutely keep it up, and let me know when I can kick a couple of bucks in that creator fund every week via Patreon.
We'll have to get that going.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep bothering you about it. Hey, or just give me a way that I can do a monthly donation some other way, because I do want to help. Make sure everyone can feel good about the work they're doing beyond fun interviews and beta testers saying this is the greatest thing on the planet. It's always nice to get a little bit of cash in exchange for your work every now and then.
Those developers need to eat.
Every now and then.
Sometimes.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
It just I've been told that tossing bags of Doritos like frag grenades are normally a pretty good way to handle it. But it depends. Do you know my outro? I always ask the guests if they know my outro. No. It's okay. This has been season 2, episode 43 of the Making Awesome podcast with the team from 3DQ, Steven, Mateo, and Steph. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.